Welcome everyone to the first and hopefully last annual meeting conducted virtually by the New York City Bar Association. It is ironic that on this, my last meeting as City Bar President, I finally get to start a scheduled meeting on time. So without further ado, let me introduce Joe Drayton, the chair of our executive committee, and ask Joe to give his report to the association.
Thank you. Good evening, members of our City Bar. Thank you for joining in our first virtual annual meeting. Thank you for participating in yet another Zoom event. I am Joseph Drayton, a law firm partner at Cooley LLP, and the outgoing chair of the Executive Committee of the City Bar. I have been a member of the City Bar for over 20 years, and thank you for the privilege to serve on a committee which represents the best among us. I thank President Maldonado, Executive Director Parker, our committee, the staff, and you, our members, for the great work of the association over the course of the year while facing unprecedented challenges. As you have come to expect, your executive committee has had a busy year, and I am pleased to share with you an overview of the work of the executive committee. As an executive committee, we have reviewed and extended the terms of 8 special committees and councils. We have approved renaming the Enhanced Diversity in the Profession Committee to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, and the renaming of the Military and Justice Committee to Military and Veteran Affairs Committee. The Executive Committee nominated a slate of 10 members to run for 5 positions on the 2021 Nominating Committee. In May 1951, the Executive Committee resolved that the association establish an award to be designated as the Award of the Association of the Bar of the City of New York, to be presented from time to time to a member of the New York Bar who has made exceptional contributions to the honor and standing of the bar in our community. This year, we awarded the association medal to Mary Jo White and Zachary Carter. The award ceremony was scheduled to take place in March of this year, but was canceled due to the current crisis. We hope to celebrate these legal stalwarts in the fall or as soon as practicable. The committee is charged with financial and administrative oversight, and I will share a sampling of our work. In this role, we reviewed and approved operating and capital budgets for fiscal year 2021. And continue to review and amend the budget as necessary. We were presented the annual report from the audit committee. We approved proposed amendments to the City Bar bylaws and heard from members of the nonprofit organizations committee in a connection with our proposed amendments. In an effort to ensure stability at the City Bar, we approved a resolution on borrowing to allow the City Bar to navigate through these unprecedented times. We were in sync with the leadership voice of President Maldonado and shared perspectives. We reviewed, for example, a letter issued by the Task Force on the Rule of Law calling on Attorney General William Barr to recuse himself from the Department of Justice review of the Ukraine matter. We also reviewed the letter drafted by the Task Force on the Rule of Law to congressional leaders requesting a formal inquiry into a disturbing pattern of conduct by Attorney General Barr. We remain proud of the work of the City Bar and receive detailed reports of its important work. The Lawyers Assistance Program, Diversity Inclusion, and Legal Referral Services Departments presented to our committee and continue to make us proud as members of the bar. Again, it has been my privilege to serve as chair of the executive committee this year. I welcome the opportunity to serve with our incoming president, Sheila Boston, my big sister in the law. You, our members, are the heartbeat and force behind the great work and services of the association. We thank you for your membership and active participation in the association. President Maldonado.
Thanks, Joe. I will forever be grateful for your support and that of the Executive Committee on the issues that we had to deal with in terms of whether and how to speak. I now have the pleasure of introducing Tom Sloane, Treasurer of the New York City Bar Association, and ask Tom to give his report to the association.
Thank you, Roger. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tom Sloane. I'm a partner at Cullen & Dykman, and I'm the treasurer of the New York City Bar. I'll be giving the association's financial report for fiscal year ending April 30th, 2020. The association's revenues were $13.8 million. Its expenses were $14.4 million. You could do the math. The result is a deficit of approximately $660,000. COVID-19 and the lockdown have had a significant effect on our operations and finances, as you would expect. And we estimate approximately half of that $660,000 deficit was caused by the pandemic and its effect on operations and finances in April and March of this year. The building here has been closed since March, but the staff, I must commend them, have been quick to adjust to a remote style workforce. Our continuing legal programs have moved to remote learning almost without skipping a beat, and I have firsthand knowledge that they're going strong, being part of a panel tomorrow. Our 150 or so committees have moved to conducting their meetings by phone or Zoom or other remote platforms. Prior to the pandemic, legal referral services had already set up their business model, with most work being done remotely, in part because the staff mainly does the staff in that program mainly does phone calls and emails. So legal referral services continues to field calls from the public, much as they did before the pandemic, and make the appropriate referrals to attorneys in the program. Our virtual law program, which the association provides a mailing address for attorneys and access to online research in the library, continues to receive mail for program members. And we negotiated deals with computer research companies like LexisNexis and Westlaw to allow the members access to computer research from locations other than the library and probably most often their homes. Our program hardest hit is meeting services. That's our program that provides a short-term rentals for portions of the building for things like meetings, parties, weddings, bar mitzvahs, movie shoots, you name it. It is not generating any revenue due to lockdown with the complete shutdown of the building. But overall, our support staff has quickly adapted to working remotely, and they've continued to provide support to our membership and the programs our members use. With respect to the budget, which Joe alluded to, when the COVID-19 epidemic first surfaced, the executive committee approved the budget that contemplated a deficit for fiscal 2021, this year we're now, of over $1.2 million. But through various measures the association has been able to take with significant time and effort by Brett Parker and his staff, the executive committee recently approved a revised budget reflecting a deficit of only $539,000 for this current fiscal year. A lot of measures were put into place. We stopped the 401k match that we had in place for employees. We reduced salaries by 5 to 15% for all association staff earning greater than $140,000. We eliminated salary increases for most staff earning more than $50,000. We also intend to reduce the late night library hours when the building reopens. We'll have it close at 5 p.m. instead of 9 p.m., which it was before it closed down, and that will save on library personnel costs. Also, starting June 1, we are going to furlough a number of workers who are in roles tied to the building being active, with the goal of them returning at some point. As I mentioned, we moved most of our programs and all CLEs to remote platforms. We have eliminated all live programs, and we expect to continue to have that in effect through at least August 31st. Similarly, meeting services programs are shut down through at least that same date. Also, to help with the situation, we applied for and received the SBA Paycheck Protection Program that most of you are familiar with. That was obtained by the City Bar Fund, and it enabled the association to receive some of that money in exchange for the services the association provides to the City Bar Fund. And we do expect and hope that that loan will be forgiven almost in its entirety and in fact become a grant. We also applied for a low interest loan with a new SBA program, and that application is currently pending. Finally, we negotiated a temporary $2 million interest-free loan from the City Bar Fund, which is holding several million dollars of the 150th anniversary campaign funds. We are going to use that money to temporarily pay down our commercial line of credit with substantial interest savings. Look, obviously, there continues to be great uncertainty about what the future holds, including the possibility that the building will not fully open it for some time. And certainly we're not going to open it until we can ensure the health and safety of our staff members and guests. Obviously, we're going to continue to monitor events and adapt as necessary. One positive note I'd like to make is that, and one which I think will help keep finances stable, is that almost half of the association's revenues come from membership dues. The membership excluding law students is $24,133. That's an increase of $578 over the prior year. And it's good that despite the pandemic, the association is growing. Total membership is 25,615 now, which is the highest in the association's history. So a bright spot. A little bit on capital improvements. Before the pandemic, we instituted a capital campaign to make various improvements to the building. The meeting hall, which you see a photo of behind some of the features, has had a technology upgrade, new seating, carpeting, drapes, and a new large flat screen TV. Also, we've had various planning sessions with architects and the like regarding other projects, including revamping the library and replacing our roof, but of course, that's all on hold for the time being. Our investment portfolio. Not surprisingly, the association's investment portfolio decreased by a significant amount over the previous year. The decrease was just a little over 1.2 million from 14.2 million at the end of fiscal year last year to 13 million at the end of April. By the way, it's up since then. This decrease is not just due to the market loss, but also in part due to our regular annual withdrawal of 4.75% of a rolling average of that portfolio, which for 2020 was $662,000. We use that annual withdrawal for association operations, which is a common thing in a not-for-profit world. Our investment portfolio, as you would expect, consists of various managed accounts, and our funds are invested in a diversified mix of assets. We have our investments actively managed by the association's investment consultant, which is Colonial Consultant, and by our Committee on Investment of Funds, chaired by John Baumgartner. That committee usually meets only quarterly, but in light of the pandemic's effect on investments, that committee has had 2 ad hoc meetings to review and approve portfolio adjustments recommended by Colonial Consultant over the past month and a half. To go along with everything I've said so far, not surprisingly, the assets of the association have decreased, which is primarily due to the decreased market value of the investments. There has also been an increase in liabilities, and that's primarily due to a higher utilization of the line of credit to cover the losses we experienced at the end of the fiscal year. The preliminary balance sheet of the association as of the end of the fiscal year, again, April 30th, 2020, shows assets of approximately 23.2 million, total liabilities of 10.4 million as compared to the previous year's 24.6 million in assets and 9.7 million in liabilities. I want to let everybody know that our audited financials are available to any member of the association from the association's chief administrative officer, and they'll also be available to all members on the association's website in the coming week. To conclude, let me just say that the executive committee and the City Bar staff will continue to monitor this pandemic, make all necessary adjustments to our operations as needed, that we can continue to serve the bar, the profession as a whole, and the public. Thank you, and before I finish, I just want to thank Roger for his service as the outgoing president, Sheila as the incoming president. I look forward to working with you, and Joe, thank you very much for your service as chair of the executive committee.
Thanks, Tom. I truly hope that at next year's annual meeting, you'll be able to give a report focusing on many more bright spots. I am pleased to introduce Brett Parker, the Executive Director of the New York City Bar Association, who will now give his report to the association.
Thank you, Roger. Appreciate that. And thanks to everyone for joining from home. I'm actually relieved to know that there are so many people joining because there is no reception afterwards. And I'm just pleased that people are interested enough to come for the content. Tom, thanks very much for your work on the finances. I know it was a tough end of the year, but I'm really sure that the steps we've taken will ensure the long-term stability of the association. So thank you very much for your work. Joe, it's been a pleasure having you as chair of the executive committee. Your meetings are run really well. You've had a really a number of issues to tackle this year, and you've kept the executive committee on task and focused. I appreciate your leadership and your friendship, and I'm looking forward to working with you again in your role as a vice president. Now, normally we would be in the meeting hall in the middle of what's usually a very busy time of year at the association. And most of the spring events have been postponed, so it's going to be a very exciting fall and winter. But we also know that most of the building would normally be quiet in the summer, even under normal circumstances. There are not going to be any meetings or gatherings or events or conferences at the City Bar until September at the earliest. The good news is that we're using this time to develop a plan for the return to the building. Our first priority, as was said before, is the safety and health of our staff, our members, and our visitors, which is why when we all go back, we'll feel confident that it's the right time and the right way to do so. And that might be the most important thing that I tell you tonight. In the meantime, as you've heard, we're very busy, and the association has been very busy all year. You're going to hear from Roger shortly about the incredible work by the projects of the City Bar Fund, the Justice Center, the Van Center, the Office for Diversity and Inclusion, the Lawyer Assistance Project. He'll talk about this activity and activity by our members and our committees. You're going to listen to him and you're going to wonder, how did he possibly get all this work done? Well, you heard a little bit about the membership numbers. The membership numbers that we have, the 25,615 members, which includes law students and LLMs, is the highest we've had in association history. And that's an increase over 681 from the year before. We also have a very active roster of committee members, and we have more and more people applying to committees and being seated on committees than ever before. In the last year, we had 1,850 committee applications, and over 5,000 slots had been filled with committee members, and that's, again, the highest we've ever had. We've also been very active, as you heard, doing CLEs and programs even while we're working remotely. Since March 31st, we've had 29 virtual CLEs, and we have 35 more coming through the end of the summer. And 30 of these have been related to COVID and the crisis. Thousands of people have attended our virtual CLE programs and non-CLE programs, sometimes having as many as 600, 700, or 800 attendees, which is truly spectacular. We also have non-CLE programs, which have been offered, by the way, to law students in the New York area for free. We have the Environmental Law Committee. They managed to have an Earth Day celebration, celebrating the 50th anniversary of Earth Day on April 22nd, with 250 people participating virtually. The CAM Committee, our Career Investment Management Committee, they had a program just this morning with over 125 people attending. And as Tom mentioned, the Bankruptcy Committee has a program tomorrow on a lifeline for small and medium-sized businesses in distress. And we already have over 200 people registered for that. We're also creating a large on-demand library, which many people access and we've offered to many people. Now, it's great that we've moved into have our committees working remotely, that we're doing our programming remotely, but we don't want to make this permanent or normalized behavior. We know we need the in-person dialogue, the debate, the camaraderie, to sit across the table, and we will come back to that. We do need the connections that start from the chance interactions that happen in the buildings, at the events, at meetings. And so we're very excited to have our chance to come back for that. Now, each year I get to mention the staff, the incredible staff that does all the work that makes this happen. And for the first time, I can use this technology, if I don't mess it up, to show our staff. Usually I call them out, and I'm able to call out some of their names, but you may not have met some of them. This is our senior staff, the people who I work with day in and day out, listed alphabetically. You can see here everyone from our senior legal counsel, our senior director for membership and customer relations. I'm not going to name them all, but I am going to scroll through them all, because these people, these faces that I'm lucky enough to see every day and I miss, I'm looking forward to seeing them again shortly. We have many Zoom meetings, we have many conversations, and this is the team, my team, our team, that keeps everything running and has kept everything running even while we're sitting remotely working from our various places. So I want to thank them all. I appreciate everything that they do. I appreciate everything that they offer to our membership, to me, and nothing happens without them. So I'm grateful that I could use the Zoom technology to show them for the first time instead of having to point them out and embarrass them in a room. I want to take a moment to mention our 150th anniversary. I want to thank everyone who supported it. I especially want to thank Brad Karp and Sam Seymour, who had the initial efforts on the fundraising. There were a lot of celebratory events, and all of that has been moved to later in the year. There will be time for celebration. It is the perfect time to check out the website on the 150th anniversary. We actually have a timeline, a City Bar timeline from the beginning to present day. There's videos of dignitaries and who have put their City Bar stories online, including Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Chief Judge Robert Katzman, and Chief Judge DeFiore. All of them have given messages, and some of you have given messages, told your City Bar stories. They're posted on the website. I please encourage you to take a look on our homepage and look at the 150th anniversary link. And you can submit your own City Bar story, and you can do it from the comfort of your own home. So I really do encourage that. Speaking of the City Bar story, I do want to say a few words about Sheila and what a milestone it is for her to be the first woman of color to be president of the City Bar. But more importantly, I met her my first couple of weeks on the job 7 years ago. She was speaking at a lunch, and it was a recruitment and retention lunch, and I had never met her, and she got up and she electrified the room. And I've gotten to know her over the years. I am so happy and so excited to be working with her. I'm really looking forward to her term as the president. I also have to point out that if this election goes as we expect and there are no technical snafus, our board, which will become a board, not an executive committee anymore, which was always an odd name, will be 59% from historically underrepresented groups. And they come from all different practice settings and all different backgrounds, big and small firms, in-house, judiciary, academia, public interest. We are lucky to have such diverse leadership with all the different perspectives they offer and the experiences that come with it. And it will make us even more resilient during a time when we need it most, and I'm sure we will deliver it. Finally, I want to take a moment to thank Roger. It has been a pleasure working with him literally every day. I think probably what I will remember most about him is the fact that this meeting started on time, which will make him very happy. Roger has put his heart and soul and sweat into this organization, and we are very, very grateful to have him as our president and shortly as our former president. Thank you very much. That concludes my report.
Brett, thank you for the kind words. Before I give my remarks, I must take care of several housekeeping tasks. First, we require approval of the minutes from the New York City Bar Association's 2019 annual meeting. I therefore call for a motion to approve the minutes of the May 21, 2019 annual meeting.
Mr. President, this is Sheila Boston, and I hereby move.
Excellent. Do I have a second?
Oh, I second it. Tom Sloane.
Thank you very much. So by the magic of Kevin, the person behind the screen, there should be appearing on your screen, there it is, polling information. So please take a moment to indicate whether you approve or not the minutes from our 2019 annual meeting. I'm going to go out on a limb and deem that it is extremely likely that everyone has, or we have, approved minutes. So I'm now going to go forward with respect to the amendments of our bylaws. All members received via email the proposed amendments to the association's bylaws. I'm very pleased to report that the membership has voted to approve the amended bylaws. The materials that we distributed described in great detail all of the changes, but I'd like to highlight a few of them, which I believe will improve our operations going forward. First, we have merged the Constitution, which I'm sure many members didn't know existed, with our bylaws into one document, so that we have now only one governing document for the association. We have also, as Brett just mentioned, renamed the executive committee to be the board of directors. And this will help clarify to not just our members, but the outside world, who the board is. I am certain that there are any number of organizations that understood the executive committee to be a subset of a larger non-existent board. We have also increased the number of board members to a range of 16 to 20, which will enable us to invite more of our very capable members to serve as on the leadership of the New York City Bar Association. And finally, another change that reflects our practice. The amendments now will have committee chairs named for 1 3-year term, which is what everyone understood the requirement to be. The prior bylaws actually had a appointment for 1 year with subsequent renewals. So our current bylaws now reflect our practice. And I now wish to turn to the most important housekeeping task. Pursuant to Section 2 of Bylaw 23rd, there is no contest of the officers and committee members of the association, except the nominating committee. Therefore, the Secretary of the Association is empowered to cast a unanimous ballot for the following nominees, and there's no need to withhold applause until the end. For President, Sheila S. Boston. For Vice Presidents, David Arroyo, Joseph Drayton, Susan Coleman. For Secretary, Drexel B. Harris. For Treasurer, Thomas R. Sloane. For the Executive Committee class of 2024, Sarah J. Berger, Jaipat S. John, the Honorable Tanya R. Kennedy, and the Honorable Kiyo Matsumoto. Finally, pursuant to Bylaw 23rd, the members have elected the following members to the nominating committee: the Honorable Sarah L. Cave, the Honorable Denny Chin, Lisa Cleary, Matthew Diller, and Kaylin Whittingham. Traditionally, the outgoing City Bar President summarizes at the annual meeting the work done by the City Bar during the President's term, with a particular focus on recent work and initiatives. As we began to cancel our events and eventually close our building due to the impact of the pandemic, I grew increasingly concerned that I would have very little to report tonight about recent events, recent work of the City Bar. I could not have been more wrong. Within 1 week of closing our building, the City Bar Justice Center announced that it would be providing free remote legal assistance to our New York City frontline healthcare workers. This assistance would consist of the preparation of life planning documents without regard to income, including wills and powers of attorney. And we, in fact, have been doing so. 10 days thereafter, the Justice Center launched its COVID-19 Small Business Initiative, for which over 500 lawyers have volunteered to assist small business persons to understand and access the loans and grants available through the federal government stimulus package, and to pursue other opportunities available through federal, state, and local programs. Shortly after these announcements by the Justice Center, our Vance Center of International Justice announced its investigations into the adverse treatment of vulnerable members of society across the globe resulting from the pandemic. Our Lawyers Assistance Program never lost a beat. They are now providing remotely the same confidential services and support that has been so meaningful to so many of our colleagues who are struggling with mental health and substance use issues. These services are so much more important now, given the forced isolation to which we are all subjected. Our Office of Diversity and Inclusion has continued meetings with Affinity Bar members, now virtually, and at these meetings, we have worked together to try to identify the means to increase judicial diversity, not just in New York City, but across New York State. Also in these meetings, we were able to come up with a joint letter sent privately to Governor Cuomo, asking him to fill vacancies in the appellate division of the First Department so that that department may once again hear and determine appeals on a timely basis. As you've heard, our CLE programs have hit the ground running, hit the virtual ground running. Within 10 days of our closing the building, we're up and running with remote CLEs. Since then, we have offered over 50 CLEs and programs on issues involving COVID-19 and on many other legal issues of interest to our many members. As you've heard, the attendance has been phenomenal. double that we had prior to the pandemic, with several hundred participants in many of these CLEs and programs. Our members who are practitioners in small law firms, and in particular the solo practitioners, have been most greatly affected by the restrictions on the access to the courts and access to the many resources that we and others afforded to attorneys in solo practice and in small law firms. We have sought, therefore, to try and mitigate these difficulties by focusing many of the CLEs and programs that you've heard described, particularly on the practice of solo practitioners and small law firms. With them in mind, we have established a weekly chat where they can get together remotely and talk about legal issues or anything else and just connect to have someone to speak to. We've also organized many library on demand programs with a particular focus on their area of practice. Our legal referral service has updated its website to link to several self-help resources. More importantly, they are actively engaged in ensuring that our panel members are both trained and available to assist on matters that we know are going to be of increasing need going forward, including probate matters and trust and estate matters. Then, of course, there is the work of our wonderful committees. Within 1 day after closing our building, the City Bar issued a statement urging Congress to include nonprofits in the federal COVID-19 stimulation package. Our Fashion Law Committee, taking a cue from that statement, recently issued a report asking New York State's congressional delegation to enact measures designed to provide desperately needed relief to New York City's retail and fashion industries. As of late March and continuing to date, we have urged federal, state, local, and even international authorities to release certain categories of incarcerated persons to prevent the further spread of COVID-19. We have written a letter to the Chief Judge and the presiding justices of the appellate divisions urging amendment to the professional rules of conduct, permitting lawyers to provide financial assistance to indigent clients for basic needs, what's known as the humanitarian exception to the professional rules, thereby allowing those attorneys who can and wish to assist indigent clients with money to be able to purchase groceries, clothes, and medical supplies. And once again, that type of assistance is sorely needed now. I note that we were asked by the new counsel to the Office of Court Administration for our permission for her to forward, which we did give, to the Permanent Commission on Access to Justice, our letter. And the reason for forwarding it is that the Permanent Commission has been asked by the Administrative Board for guidance on whether or not to enact the humanitarian exception. And it is our expectation that shortly the Permanent Commission will be issuing a report both supporting and endorsing the passage of the humanitarian exception that is so greatly needed now. Our committees have issued reports to the New York State and New York City taxing authorities, urging that there be no negative tax consequences for activities and the lack thereof, such as not being able to move from one state to the other, resulting from conditions imposed by the pandemic. We have written letters to OCA, urging measures to be taken to protect litigants, attorneys, and court personnel as the court system slowly transitions from its virtual operations now to, in all likelihood, a mix of virtual and in-person hearings going forward in ways that serve justice while protecting all persons who must appear before the courts. We have issued reports seeking to protect tenants and consumers from unwarranted proceedings and enforcement actions pending their ability to get back to court to be able to protect their rights so that they not be unfairly evicted from their homes or have judgments entered against them while they have no access to the courts. We have written a letter to the governor asking the governor to do all that he can to avoid any cuts to our legal service, to the legal services community, whose services now are needed more than ever, given the pandemic's disproportionate adverse impact on those most vulnerable members of our communities. And there's so much more that we have done just recently to address the pandemic. But I would like to take a few minutes to talk about some of the most important work that the City Bar has done prior to our addressing the pandemic. In 2018, we issued an ethics opinion asserting that lawyers could not enter into certain arrangements with litigation funders. We received enormous pushback, not just from litigation funders, but from many sectors of the legal community, urging us to withdraw the opinion. We did not do so because we felt that the opinion does clearly state the current state of play under applicable rules. We decided, though, to establish a working group on litigation funding, co-chaired by Debbie Raskin, a former City Bar Association president, and Lynn Nooner. The working group included many of the same persons who had criticized our ethics opinion, members of litigation funders, members of firms who actively work with litigation funders. And the working group, over the course of a year, arrived at a series of recommendations for amendments to the applicable rules that would allow law firms to have direct arrangements with litigation funders, subject, however, to certain safeguards designed to protect the interests of those firms' clients. I was particularly pleased to receive, for my approval and to act on, a report from the Legal Education and Pipeline Task Force led by Seth Bryant called Sealing the Leaks. The report called for a commitment by the City Bar to undertake a series of measures to enhance diversity in the profession. That report was followed by a report named The Diversity Gap, written by Ashley Bernal. This report focuses on the crucial role played by pipeline programs to assist students of color to become interested in, to enter, and graduate from law school, many of them as the first members of their families to do so. I am certain that you will be hearing from Sheila Boston over the next 2 years and from her successors for many years to come about all that the City Bar has done and will continue to do to enhance diversity all across our profession. The 2019 legislative session was one in which many bills that the City Bar had been promoting for years finally were enacted. Among the statutes that passed during that session were voting and election law reforms, protections of rights relating to gender, surrogacy, reproductive health, and immigration, criminal law justice reform, and many other statutes, including passage of the Uniform Voidable Transactions Act, with written in great part by members of the City Bar, and continuing efforts to support business-to-business arbitration in New York City. At the local level, we were part of a coalition that successfully supported the Fair Fares campaign. Try saying that 3 times quickly. We also were very proud to be part of a broad coalition that successfully obtained, finally, passage of a plan to close the facilities at Rikers Island. And we will do what's necessary to make sure that that happens. We even had some success at the federal level. Along with many other groups, we opposed cuts to SNAP funding. And again, as part of a broad coalition, we supported passage of the First Step Act, aptly named as being just the beginning of needed criminal reforms at the federal justice level. I want to give special mention to the work of the Immigration and Nationality Law Committee, chaired by Vicki Nielsen. Together with many other committees, they issued a report urging OCA to restrict warrantless arrests by ICE in New York State's courthouses. This pattern of arrests was leading to immigrants and even both those who are here with the so-called approval of our government and those without, from avoiding going to the courts for fear of being arrested. We were pleased to join efforts with a broad coalition of groups who made clear to OCA why these arrests needed to stop, and indeed OCA finally adopted measures agreeing with our report and stopping the continued arrests by ICE in the courthouses. Thereafter, the Attorney General of New York State filed a lawsuit seeking to extend the prohibition on arrests, not just to warrantless arrests in the courthouse, but stopping arrests around the courthouse, because it made no difference to the litigants if they were arrested in the courthouse, if they were going to be arrested as they were leaving. We were happy, therefore, to provide an amicus brief in support of New York State's motion for summary judgment, seeking to have the rights of these litigants protected as they go to and from the courts. I also must commend the committee for opposing steadfastly what must have seemed like a ceaseless assault by the current administration on the rights of persons seeking asylum and lawful status to remain in these United States. The committee consistently defended the right to access our institutions of justice on behalf of these persons so they may seek and obtain appropriate relief. I know that you are all aware that the rule of law has been under attack throughout the world, including here at home. Our international law committees, including the Task Force on the Independence of Lawyers and Judges, have issued numerous reports, statements, and letters urging governments to cease the violence being perpetrated against lawyers and judges actively involved in upholding human rights and the rule of law, and to cease the harassment and violence against journalists and suppression of the media, reporting on matters of great importance to their communities, including the spread of COVID-19. Last year, we created the City Bar's Task Force on the Rule of Law, chaired by Steve Cass. The 3 reports, some of whom that you've heard mentioned today, that were issued by the task force with respect to the position of the Attorney General of the United States, seeking to require Attorney General Barr to abide by his sworn duty to uphold the law of this land and to serve the interests of all members of our society, resulted in this association's call for adherence to the rule of law being heard throughout the world. And the statements that we have issued criticizing members of both major political parties for intemperate remarks directed at members of the judiciary have also served to have our voice heard nationally and internationally. Recently, the Task Force on the Rule of Law has issued reports criticizing the president's removal of inspectors general and supporting legislation designed to rebalance the relationship between Congress and the executive branch in the exercise of authority during national emergencies, such as the one that we are now traversing. The members of this association, together with all residents of the United States, owe the Task Force on the Rule of Law a deep debt of gratitude for its forceful defense of the legal principles on which our society is grounded. On a personal note, I must say that I will be forever grateful for the opportunity to introduce and interact with Justices Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Sonia Sotomayor at events hosted at our City Bar building. And I sincerely hope that we will be able to host similar events in the not too distant future. I also will similarly forever cherish the privilege of having worked with so many talented and dedicated lawyers and staff during my term as president of the New York City Bar. I thought about trying to thank some of these persons in tonight's remarks, but as you saw from the chart that Brett just showed you, there are far too many. It would take too long, and I would not be able to express my true gratitude. I will reach out to each individual separately afterwards to give my thanks for all of their support and all of the assistance that they have provided, not so much to me, but to all of the work of the City Bar. Fortunately, Sheila, these persons are going to be there for you and to have your back as you lead the New York City Bar into its next 150 years. And Sheila, you are absolutely the right person to do so. Your positive attitude, strength, and humanity will serve you and all members of this great association very well. We all look forward to your leadership, beginning with your first remarks as president of the New York City Bar Association. Sheila, the virtual floor is yours.
Wow. I wish we had the applause right now for you. Oh, this is amazing. Chief Judge DeFiore, Chief Judge Katzman, and all of our esteemed judiciary, President Roger Maldonado, Executive Director Brett Parker, and the superb staff who you work with, devoted members and friends of the association, personal friends and family members joining us tonight. My dear beloved community, I say good evening to you. First and foremost, I would like to express my sincere greetings, warm wishes, and yes, even concern to everyone under the sound of my voice, as we are indeed in the midst of exceptionally challenging times. This COVID-19 health pandemic has radically changed all of our lives. If you're scared and are anxious, I wish you peace and courage. If you or someone whom you love is battling the virus, I wish you and them healing and a speedy recovery. And if you've lost someone during this pandemic, my heart especially goes out to you, and know that I grieve with you, literally as well as figuratively. For I'll share with you, I lost a very good friend and mentor, and to honor him, I'd like to call out his name, Stephen Edwards, Esquire. He was a partner in New York City at Hogan Lovells for many years, and then practiced law at Quinn Emanuel. He was a big supporter of mine, and so I'm missing him tonight. My heart grieves for him. I also have to call out the name of Addie Robinson. She was my cousin through marriage, and she too lost her life to COVID-19. So my family, we still grieve for her as well. And I hope you all don't mind, but I'd very much like for all of you, even virtually, to just join me, take about 15 to 20 seconds to have a moment of silence in honor of those who tragically lost their lives in this health pandemic. Thank you so much for that. And may they all rest in peace. I just thought it was very appropriate for us to do that at this time. And on a brighter note, I would like to take a moment to thank and salute all of the brave and compassionate medical and other frontline essential workers during this pandemic, all over the country really, but especially those right here in New York City, as we have been one of the epicenters of the pandemic. For this most unexpected but wonderful opportunity to serve, I just have to first give thanks to my Creator, God, who is the source of all blessings. Thank you, God. Roger Maldonado, my dear friend, my immediate predecessor now, it's weird to me. I thank you for your kind and warm words. God bless you for your strength, wisdom, and service that you've provided to our association as you've been at its helm for the past 2 years. Thank you for speaking up and standing up when there have been assaults on the independence of our judges and on the rule of law, which we hold so dearly in this country and particularly in our profession. Thank you, Roger, for your promotion and support of diversity and inclusion initiatives in the field of law. And I thank you for your tireless efforts in support of equal access to justice and the notion that all persons, regardless of socioeconomic status, have a right to a justice system that works for them and not against them. I like to take a moment to especially thank my parents. I hope someone helped them with Zoom tonight and that they're able to see this, because it's because of my parents that I am. I'm the daughter of Louis James Boston Sr. and Isabel Dolores Herndon Boston, who live in Clinton, Maryland. My father, Reverend Louis Boston, was a colonel in the U.S. Army, and when he retired, he became the pastor of First Baptist Church of Annapolis, Maryland. My mother, Isabel, worked in a hospital, and she was a classical singer until she had me. Thereafter, she became a full-time mother to me and my younger brother, and I've got to give him a shout out, Louis James Boston Jr., AKA Jamie. As I often say, he's a sibling whom I must love, but I actually also like him as well. I'm proud of him. He's an attorney. He's a retired Army JAG officer, but now he works in the U.S. Patent Office. I love you, James, and thank you. I would certainly like to thank all of my law firm colleagues at Arnold and Porter, K. Scholler, LLP, as they've been very generous and kind in their support of me undertaking this tremendous new responsibility. I wish to thank all of the members of the City Bar's Nominating Committee, because they're the ones who put my name forward for this office. My goodness, thank you for your confidence in me and my abilities. And last but not least of all, I wish to thank my beautiful family with whom I am sheltering in place. There's my son, Rome Robinson. He's in law enforcement, so he actually still physically goes to work every day. Rome, I want you to know I am so proud of you. My daughter, Ariel Robinson, she just recently became a registered nurse and will begin working in the medical field next month. Ariel, I'm proud of you. And to my ride or die life partner, my husband, the Reverend Jerome Robinson. He's a retired New York State trooper who is now an ordained minister. My dear, I say thank you from the bottom of my heart for all your love, your patience, your listening ear, your pep talks, your wise counsel, and especially your prayers. I love you, and there's no way that I could do all that I do without your tremendous and unceasing support. Let me now hasten to share with you just a few thoughts and my vision for the New York City Bar Association over the next 2 years. First of all, everyone, if you remember nothing else tonight that I say, please know that I wish for this Bar Association to become a bar of hope. I'm going to say it again, a bar of hope. That's the theme I'm embracing and promoting, and I hope that it is a charge that all of you will join me in taking seriously. Although we will certainly engage in a lot of different kinds of programming and policy formulation, I'm going to be transparent and share with you that there are 6 main topics or types of projects on which I would especially like to focus during my term as president, listing them in no particular order of significance or emphasis. Those 6 areas include COVID-19 recovery projects, mental health and wellness, access to justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion, criminal justice reform, and protection of the rule of law. Now, for those of us who practice law in New York City, this association, it's our professional home. We're currently abiding by Governor Cuomo's shelter-in-place order, but I do hope and believe we'll eventually be able to populate the streets and the offices of New York City again, and hopefully in the not too distant future. And when that happens, I'd like for the New York City Bar Association to play a prominent role in the facilitation of the successful, physical, and safe repopulation of law firms, offices, and courtrooms. And that's why I've asked the Council of the Profession, chaired by Dean Matthew Diller and Judge Elizabeth Stong, to begin researching, canvassing the profession, and collecting information to figure out ways that we may assist New York City law firms, practitioners, and courts in our road to recovery from the coronavirus pandemic. And I'm sure that the Small Law Firm Committee, which will now be chaired by Ann Wolfson, will assist in that endeavor as well as other committees. I believe in the COVID-19 recovery projects. For yes, New York, we will recover. And the Bar of Hope will keep reminding you of that fact and assisting such that it will come to fruition. Now, I should note that as a part of that recovery project, I wish to include a special focus on law school students. Hear me, for they are, of course, the future of our profession. My heart goes out to them right now, particularly the great law school class of 2020. To you, I say congratulations, everybody, you made it. Welcome to the profession. Yet, I know you're probably nervous and disappointed. Law school students have had to deal with virtual graduations, bar exam delays and complications, delayed, shortened, or canceled internships, summer associate positions, delayed permanent job positions, even unemployment, and other challenges I can't even fathom. But I want you to know you're not forgotten, and we'll do our best to assist you with the unprecedented challenges this pandemic has wrought. We have a very strong, hardworking, and enthusiastic group of attorneys who serve on the Council on the Profession and the New Lawyer Institute Committee, and also law school ambassadors, all of whom are ready to demonstrate to you we are a bar of hope. Dovetailing with the provision of practical guidance and tips for the New York City legal community is the second project I want to share with you on my agenda. And that is my hope to further educate, garner support for, and increase the practice of sound mental health and wellness for lawyers, judges, law professors, and law school students. One of the most important lessons I've learned during this health crisis is the necessity of caring for your mental and emotional wellness. I was speaking with a friend of mine. She is a psychiatric nurse by training. And we were discussing the ways in which this pandemic, meaning having to quarantine ourselves in our homes, having to socially distance ourselves, and having so much sickness and death in our collective lives, is wreaking havoc in our professional and personal lives, and is testing the human spirit. She labeled what we've been going through as an actual trauma. And she explained to me that we are all going to have to take special care of ourselves through this and after this. And she even likened us to PTSD or post-traumatic syndrome disorder survivors. You see, those of us who work in the field of law, we are no strangers to stress whatsoever. And no matter how much we may love the law, there's no getting around it. It's often very stressful. So now if you add an actual health pandemic on top of that, it's not unfathomable that we could become especially susceptible to feelings of anxiety, bouts of depression, and even substance abuse. And that's why I'm so thankful for the work of the City Bar's Lawyers Assistance Program led by Eileen Travis, and why I'm charging our Mindfulness and Wellbeing in Law Committee, chaired by Cecilia Loving and Robert Chender, to ramp up its efforts in educational programming for our legal community so that we can help to make sure that all of us are more healthy, not just physically, but also mentally and emotionally. And we support the ABA's recommendation that lawyers be required to take a CLE course on mental health and substance use disorders every 2 years. We'll be issuing our report on that topic shortly. But for now, just know that is my hope and a vision for a bar of hope. Number 3, a third vision and true passion of mine is access to justice. The New York City Bar Association has always played a prominent role in this sphere, and we must not only continue to do so, but because of this pandemic, we must increase our resolve and commitment to this goal. I applaud the City Bar Justice Center and its legal hotline, the City Bar's legal referral service run by George Wolf, as well as the Pro Bono and Legal Services Committee, and the many New York City Bar Association individual attorneys who have tirelessly been engaging in pro bono work to assist the most vulnerable in our community, whether it's dealing with landlord-tenant issues or disparate treatment in our educational system, whether it's advocating for the compassionate release of nonviolent prisoners who have underlying medical conditions, making them more susceptible to COVID-19, or dealing with criminal justice issues related to race, income disparity, and mental illness. The City Bar must be involved. The pandemic is crippling the American economy, and expert researchers, they're sounding the alarm. They're warning us that the poverty rate may reach the highest levels in half a century. And quite frankly, it's hitting African Americans and children the hardest. In fact, if you haven't already done so, I'd recommend that you read the April 16th New York Times article by Jason DePaul. It's entitled, "A Gloomy Prediction on How Much Poverty Could Rise." I should also note, as I am an Army brat, I care a lot about our veterans. That's another vulnerable population, as I know that they have significant access to justice struggles and issues. Access to justice. The list, quite frankly, can go on and on and on. But certainly, the New York City Bar, which has some of the finest legal minds in the country and in the world, can play a role in developing policies and strategies, as well as providing actual representation to those who are supposed to be protected by our society's safety net. But quite frankly, in these challenging times, they're merely holding on by a string. I say this often, and it is my personal mantra. To whom much is given, much is required. I believe that it's a privilege to be a lawyer. We're truly blessed to be in this profession and to have the special resources and skill sets that we have. And I believe that we lawyers have an obligation to give voice to the voiceless, serve those less fortunate than ourselves, and provide true access to justice. We're charged with making our society better, and especially for those whose voices have historically been muffled or even silenced. Noblesse oblige. It is not a mere hollow ideal or fanciful dream to me, but instead, it is a true and firm standard of practice. I want that standard, that bar measurement, if you will, to be a high one. Y'all, I'm talking about a bar of hope this evening. Now, anyone who really knows me knows that I am passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that is indeed a fourth vision I wish to share with you this evening. It's my hope and prayer that the New York City Bar Association can continue and further elevate its pursuit to make our profession more diverse and inclusive, whether it's in law firms, corporations, or the judiciary. Come on, y'all. We New Yorkers believe that our city is the center of the universe. We're like a rainbow nation here. We have representatives from so many different races, ethnicities, sexual orientations, religions, and cultures right here in New York City. There is a wealth of untapped potential. E pluribus unum. It is a virtuous enterprise. And I plan to work closely with our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office headed by Deborah Martin Owens, as well as our Parent Diversity Committee, a committee which I led for many years, but is now chaired by Matthew Morningstar and Robert Marchman to further that cause. In that regard, Roger, I know that I'm just grabbing the baton from you, for it's one of the areas in which you worked so vigorously. So thank you. Number 5, a fifth pillar of my presidency will be a continued engagement of the City Bar in criminal justice reform. We see the need for such reform when we read the newspapers, when we look at what's happening on our television screens. You know, I don't feel like I should even insult your intelligence by belaboring the issue. We all know that in this country, we have over-incarceration. The length of time people are serving for mild infractions is disturbing. There's unfairness associated with parole violation measures, and there is an obvious and disturbing racial element to our criminal justice system that must be addressed. Period. I'm speaking truth. So again, I'm not going to belabor it or go into great detail, but I want you to know that the City Bar has a criminal justice cluster of committees, as well as a mass incarceration task force. And I know that they will continue to work and advocate for fairer policies and strategies in relation to criminal justice reform. And then last but not least of all, number 6, I would like to charge the City Bar Association to keep vigilantly serving as a vanguard of the rule of law. The rule of law is an imperative in a free democracy. It's vital because it ensures the supremacy of the law and that no one can claim to be above it. It enshrines the principles of fairness, justice, and impartiality. It makes sure that there is accountability when someone abuses or breaks the law. It protects the separation of powers we have in this country, like comity, state versus federal, the 3 branches of government, executive powers versus legislative versus judicial. The rule of law protects the independence of the judiciary, our beloved judges. And through the First Amendment of the US Constitution, it safeguards the freedom of the press, that which some people call a 4th branch of government. The rule of law provides for legal transparency and equity in our society. Those of us in the profession of law give oaths to uphold the US Constitution and the promulgated laws in our country. We lawyers, we're supposed to be the vanguards of the rule of law. And I pledge that the City Bar will continue to be one of the associations at the forefront of that cause. So there you have it. There's a lot to do, but then there's a lot more that could be done. I know it sounds ambitious, and it is. But over the next 2 years, I do truly hope to concentrate on a recap, COVID-19 recovery projects, mental health and wellness for our profession, access to justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion in the profession, criminal justice reform, and serving as a vanguard for the rule of law. Okay, those are my primary areas of interest and agenda. I've only been the president of the New York City Bar for what, maybe less than 30 minutes? And yet I can hear Brett Parker, our executive director, just virtually in my ear, earnestly reminding me that I will need to ensure that we continue to increase our membership. In other words, I'd be a bad president if I didn't make an appeal for all of you who are members to help us out during this difficult time. So, if you can, please pay your membership dues. We really need it. We're doing all we can to curb costs. You heard the report earlier. But this is a financially difficult time, and we need the funds to do all of the great work you've been hearing about this evening. And if you're not already a member of the New York City Bar, we welcome you. We invite you to join us. Just go to our website, www.nycbar.org. We are currently at over 25,000 members strong, but hey all, there is so very much to do. Now I can still hear Brett virtually in my ear. This time he's reminding me that we need to continue providing excellent programming, especially with respect to CLEs. So if you're not already involved with the City Bar, but you want to join us in our important work, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or Brett Parker. I'd love to talk to you and connect you to the project for which you have great interest and passion. And Brett, I think I can also hear you reminding me that I'll need to be ready and willing to respond to the unexpected issues that will certainly come our way. Brett, I just wanted you to know that I hear you and I'm ready to take on the challenges with you. Now, as many of you know, this is a historic occasion as I assume the helm of the New York City Bar Association. And I would very much like to take a moment to acknowledge that. This year, we celebrate the association's 150th year anniversary. But tonight we're also celebrating that I am the first woman of color to serve as president of the New York City Bar Association. We've had only one other African-American president to date, and that was 30 years ago. But I'd be remiss if I didn't, with great respect, acknowledge him and call out his name. Conrad K. Harper, Esquire. He was a partner at Simpson Thacher. I hope you're watching. God bless you, sir, and thank you for all of your service. It's also my understanding that I'm the 5th female president of this august body. Before me, there was Barbara Paul Robinson. She was the first female president in 1994. And she was followed by Patricia Hines, Betsy Plevin, and Deborah Raskin. They are my female predecessors. They are my sheroes. Thank you so much, ladies, for your service and for shattering that proverbial glass ceiling. Now, I want to take a moment to be crystal clear. I am unapologetically and quite proudly African-American and female. And as this organization's first woman of color president, I have to give a special shout out to all of the women of color attorneys, law professors, law school students, and judges of the New York City legal community. I want all of you to know that I so appreciate the support you've demonstrated to me. The phone calls, online postings, flowers, the personally written cards and letters, text messages and emails. My God, I want you to know that I see you. I appreciate you. Despite any societal and systemic challenges we may face in our practice of law and our daily lives as women of color, I want you to know you are smart, you are talented, you are beautiful, and I stand here today and begin this journey as a representative of all of you. Whether you're African, Caribbean, Latina, Asian, Polynesian, Native American, or any part of any other racial or ethnic minority, if you identify as a woman of color, this historic moment is for you. I'll do my best not to embarrass you, and I'll work hard and do my best to be a shining example of who we are and what we can do. And now, just to everybody under the sound of my voice this evening, to all beloved members and friends of the New York City Bar Association, please know that I am truly humbled, excited, and pleased for this opportunity to serve as your New York City Bar Association president. I look forward to working with my esteemed executive committee members. And I have to shout out Joe Drayton, that's my brother. We the same firm for so many years. You know I love you, and I'm excited you're gonna be one of the VPs. I'm looking forward to working with Maria Salente, our Albany legislation guru, Tom Halter, Chief Administrative Officer, Eileen Bine of Membership, the Vance Center for International Justice, Alex Papachistro, the City Justice Fund led by Lynn Kelly, to the beautiful spirit, Martha Harris, with respect to committee programming. And I know there's so many more, but those are the ones with whom I've worked the most thus far. I am relishing the opportunity to work with you and the countless other individuals whose names I didn't even have a chance to mention this evening. In closing, ladies and gentlemen, I guess you can just call me an optimist, all right? To me, the glass is half full, even during this pandemic. When I was first told that I had been nominated for this position, I was quite nervous. That is, until I was at a dinner. It was the end of last year, with many of what we call the living former presidents of the New York City Bar Association. Let me tell you a quick story and I'll be out of your way. You can have your evening. You see, I was sitting at a very long table in the very stately and revered City Bar building at 42 West 44th Street. And frankly, none of the attendees looked like me. Conrad Harper wasn't there, by the way. But I was seated next to one of, if not the most senior person at the table. His name? Louis A. Krakow Sr. And I hope his family is watching right now. Louis Krakow was president of the association back in 1982 to 1984. And I guess he sensed that I was feeling a little out of place and nervous. Because at one point, he just gently and kindly placed his hand over mine. He looked me directly in my eyes. And he said, "Sheila, I'm excited about you becoming the next president. And I am confident that you're going to do a spectacular job. I just want you to always remember, you're not them." He was pointing to others at the table. "I want you to be yourself." And I have to tell you, since that moment, I have felt more confident than ever about this journey. I'm a little choked up because unfortunately, Lou Krakow Sr. is not with us today. He passed away earlier this year. God bless his soul. But to his family, please know I'm so thankful for just the little time I had with him and the beautiful words he imparted to me and his vote of confidence. Because what he said to me, I'll always carry in my heart. As a young African-American girl matriculating through the Prince George's County, Maryland public school system, born to a middle-class family, I never in a million years envisioned myself going to Ivy League institutions such as Princeton University and Columbia Law School. I never envisioned that one day I'd be a litigation partner at a firm as prominent as Arnold & Porter, Case-Shiller LLP. And then not only as a child, but even as an adult until the fall of 2019. I never in my wildest dreams thought that I would become president of this bar association. Grammy singer Alicia Keys, I love her. She describes New York City as a concrete jungle that dreams are made of. You know the song, you sing it with me. Well, I'm a witness that dreams in New York City can come true. And right now, I'm dreaming of a thriving New York City law profession. I know that just as we rebounded from 9/11, we can recover from this health pandemic and economic crisis. We can emerge even smarter. We can be more productive. We can become more compassionate and kind. We are New Yorkers. We're resilient. Hashtag New York Strong. And as I take the helm of the New York City Bar Association, I can assure you, we're dedicated to improving the administration of justice and promoting the study of law. We are ready, willing, and able to serve. We are hashtag a bar of hope. Everyone, thank you so very much. Thank you for being here. May all of you be blessed. Please stay safe, healthy, and keep the faith. I love you. Thank you so much. Okay, I guess I'll now turn the mic back over to our wonderful executive director, none other than Mr. Brett Parker.
Thank you, Sheila. Wow, I feel like we should be in that meeting hall. We should be up there. We should be cheering. We should be hooting and hollering and applauding. That is such a moving speech. I am weeping with many people. The text message I'm receiving from people who are just already excited and motivated and inspired by your words. Brava, brava, Sheila. Anyway, very much looking forward to this. Everyone, thank you for being here. Have a great evening. Get home safe.